see a crime.
All right, everybody, here we are. Does that look like a private bank building over there?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It looks a lot like a government building.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Now, the company that owns that is part of the federal government as a federal express. Right. Well, I got to give a plug. I'm going to sell some EndFed t-shirts here. Which you can over and see her during the suggestion speech. This is going to be it.
Are we not allowed on the public sidewalk? That could be the change from walking down the public sidewalk.
Where's Justin? Justin!
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention.
I can get arrested for walking on the sidewalk in America?
Yeah.
I can get arrested for walking down a sidewalk in America?
Yes!
They have to be declared
Am I in America?
I can only see one building. It looks blighted and needs to be demolished. It's that one.
Yes, we're in America.
Oh, they're filming a movie.
Well, you know.
Go get him, Dan!
Thank you, Chris. And for those who don't know Chris Jenner, we really deserve, or Chris deserves to have a big hand. He's a tireless advocate of constitutional government.
Hey, Chris!
Ceaselessly for the cause. Let's give Chris a big hand.
Yay!
I'd also like to thank the patriotic folks over at PressConservative.com for their support for promoting this event. I think it's safe to say that you wouldn't be here today if you were not well informed and if you didn't fear for the future of your country.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
So please excuse some of the elementary portions of my address as they're for the benefit of those who may see this on something like YouTube or some other site on the internet. So what makes people give up a Sunday with their family to travel all the way to Chicago, march several miles, and perhaps even lose their voices in the process? The apathetic and uninformed may see us as misguided zealots in desperate need of a hobby. Perhaps they even believe the propaganda that they've heard that paints Tea Partiers and supporters of the EndFed movement as racists, extremists, anarchists, and maybe even potential domestic terrorists. When I look around me today and I don't see those kind of people, I see people of all races, all ages, all classes, and even those with perhaps different political ideologies. I don't see extremists. I see average Americans who are greatly concerned about their country's future.
That's right. Yes.
People who are suffering from the adverse effects of the worst economic crisis to hit this country since the Great Depression.
Yes.
People who care enough about their country and their children's future to make their voices heard here in front of the Chicago branch of the Federal Reserve. America has always been a country where if you had a dream and worked hard, you could achieve success regardless of where you started from. Today, can we honestly tell our children that? It has been said that it's a recession when your neighbor's out of work, and it's a depression when you're out of work. Well, for almost a year, I've been experiencing the Great Depression of 2009, as I'm sure many of you have as well. But according to the mainstream media, we don't have anything to worry about, right? The economy's getting better. All economic indicators are pointing upwards. They don't want you to pay attention to the rising unemployment rate that currently sits at 10.2% in this country, the worst job market in 25 years. Pay no attention to the fact that the actual unemployment and underemployment rate is almost 20%. Yes, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, we are paying attention,
yes,
and we refuse to accept what we see.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. Give me liberty.
They would also have us ignore the inevitable effects of the Federal Reserve's rapid debasing of our currency, especially over the past year or so as the Fed has printed dollars that literally doubled the nation's money supply to pay for the federal government's bailout of their banking and corporate elite buddies, and to pay back the political favors of organizations like SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. Those are the guys who helped elect the current band of the extreme socialists who currently control our government. Decades of the federal government's budget deficits have been predominantly made possible by the privately owned Federal Reserve's practice of printing money out of thin air. The result is inflation, the destabilization of our currency, and a total national debt that's now over $105 trillion. That's more than $344,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. You don't have to be an economist to know what that means. The myopic are quick to assert that there isn't any inflation, that prices are, for the most part, remain relatively stable. They must not know that most of the newly printed bailout dollars remain in the coffers of the banks, which are holding these dollars to ride out the rough times ahead instead of lending them to people who are creditworthy and who need it. Eventually, these dollars are either going to go into circulation or they will have to be removed from the system via higher interest rates, skyrocketing interest rates that will be needed to remove the literal mountain of phony dollars. To the myopic, I submit the very definition of inflation, which is an increase in the supply of currency or credit relative to the ability or availability of goods and services. From 1913, the year the Federal Reserve was created, until now, the dollar has lost 96% of its value. When money is taken from our paychecks to pay for government expenditures and over-expenditures, it's called the income tax. And when money is printed by the Federal Reserve to pay for those excesses, it's called the inflation tax. Both taxes result in reduced purchasing power. The more dollars that are printed into existence, the less that those that you've worked hard for, resulting in a lowering of the standard of your living and the decimation of what you've responsibly put into savings accounts, your children's college education funds, and your retirement funds. When it comes to the Federal Reserve's inflation tax, it matters not whether you are black or white, male or female, young or old, conservative or liberal. This issue transcends political ideology because its detrimental affects every one of us. Its harshest effects rest on those of the lower and lowest incomes. It is in the hands of those with wealth and influence, like the bailout recipients, that first hold these inflated dollars and therefore benefit from their newly printed existence. But by the time that these dollars find their way into the hands of the poor, the resulting rise in prices has long since done its damage. So while socialism and wealth redistribution is being pushed to supposedly help the poor, our government complacently stands by and allows those poor to endure untold suffering resulting from the Fed's inflation tax. Now, I know again all of you are very well informed, but again for those who may not know, the evils of the central bank are not new to America. Before 1913, central banks occasionally existed by way of renewable charters. These charters were revoked because of the same problems we're experiencing today. And perhaps the most famous charter revocation was spearheaded by President Andrew Jackson. He said, and I quote, "Gentlemen, I have had men watching you for a long time, and I am convinced that you have used the funds of the bank to speculate in the breadstuffs of the country. When you won, you divided the profits among you, and when you lost, you charged it back to the banks." He goes on to say, "You tell me that if I take the deposits from the bank and annul its charter, I shall ruin 10,000 families. That may be true, gentlemen, but that is your sin. Should I let you go on, you will ruin 50,000 families, and that would be my sin. You are a den of vipers and thieves. I intend to rout you out, and by the grace of the eternal